Welcome back to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast, the place where poetry meets conversation. I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that plus sign so you don't miss an episode. Also, please subscribe to my blog, thebrownssugarcafe.blog, and if you find any value in this episode or any other episodes, make sure you leave a heartfelt review. So with that being said, let's get to it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. I hope that you all are doing well. Hope that you all are taking care of yourselves. Did a couple of solo episodes recently, but today, we're going to keep those guests rolling. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Damion Johnson, and I'm an artist. From top to bottom, everything about me, every dollar I make, everything I do comes from art, to and through art.
Thank you for coming on, man. I really, really appreciate it. I'm a fan of your artwork, and I know you have a lot of other fans when it comes to your artwork. And so I wanted to have you on here just to talk about your journey. I'm a person who loves the arts. Back in the day, I used to draw, paint. I know people tired of me saying this. I'm gonna get back to it eventually. But I just love art. I've always loved art, taking art classes in school, even just like drawing. I found some of my old drawings and paintings. My folks came across them, and it was just crazy to see, the level that I had at such a young age. And I'm just like, I don't know what happened where I just kind of slacked off with that. Maybe it's because I started writing. I don't know. But first of all, how did you get started with art?
So my memories of art, and I'm a one of 5 kids. So we have 4 boys and 1 girl, and I was the third boy. So my older brothers would do things, and I try to do what they do. So I had my oldest brother. He could draw, and my next oldest brother, he was drawing also. Just like you said, everybody starts off drawing. It's like something that's in you. But I would trace the 18 wheelers that they drew. I couldn't. Excuse me. It was sneakers and 18 wheelers. So I would trace those things. I couldn't draw as good as them. I couldn't run as fast as them. But I would trace what they were doing, and I could never draw as well as they could draw. But I think I got in maybe about 6th or 7th grade. I started discovering that I was, one of the best draftsmen, in my class. So when I tell people, how I kind of found art, I think it kind of found me. My oldest brother was an athlete, my second older brother, he was a brain, so I couldn't run as fast as the first one, and I could not smart the second one. My grades was just,
Yeah.
So art came to be the thing that I could do, and in those situations or in houses like that, you got to find your identity, and that kind of became my identity, and I just kept going. Now I look back, just like you said earlier, we all start drawing. We start, but somewhere along the line, you go, on different paths. But I kept going. But along the way, art kind of found me. It was I think art was interested in me before I was interested in it.
Wow.
And it kind of went from there.
Oh man, I like that response, man. Yeah, yeah. Man, when I tell you, it was nothing like just getting lost in drawing stuff. And I remember at one age, I was real big on drawing Ninja Turtles. Like, I don't know what it was, but
Right.
I just always found myself drawing Ninja Turtles, man.
Yeah, I think drawing. I mean, if we get scientific with it, or we go back, it's primitive. Kind of everybody kind of communicated through visuals. But if you look at all kids, drawing is that gateway. Seems like you'll go through drawing to, the other things, and you're still in the arts. So that same introduction drawing gave you to the arts.
Yeah.
It pushed you right to where you are right now. So it did what it's supposed to do.
Man, I can agree with that. What age did you decide that you could take this thing to a whole nother level?
So my and I mean, when I look back, man, I had a blessed life. My uncle was the art teacher at my middle school. small school. So from my middle school to my high school,
Yeah.
it was my uncle who was the art teacher. And I didn't have a whole lot of direction as far as knowing what I was going to do after high school. But he sent me. I never forget it. He sent me up to Claflin to a humanities festival. Made sure I got there, and when I got there, I think I won first place in some category, and then got some scholarship money. And when I went to Claflin, I got in that art department. And I never forget, I was in art class for the first day, and there was some guys in the back. They were a little older. I think we were in a design concept class. But they drew a picture of the teacher and had it passing it around. I'm like, Jesus, on their bad day,
Yeah.
they ain't
Right.
around, and this is where I am. So I think being around those guys, to answer the question, being around those guys showed me, um, the level, that I could reach, and I really started taking it serious right then. After I think right after my freshman year, I found that I'm an artist, and I can take this, I can take this and fly with it. So probably around then.
You're also a barber, and I used to cut hair on the side. Back in the day, never got a license or anything like that.
Right.
So when did that come into play? Like, do you think one influenced the other?
It's hard to tell, because most men who look like me and you, they can cut hair. It's you know they come to the barbershop, but they could cut they could cut their
Yeah.
own hair. It's amazing how blessed and talented you know the works of our hands are, and I think that goes way back, and but they are intertwined, as far as seeing, if you look at it this way, seeing something come from zero into fruition. You look at a head, and it has hair all over it, but you gotta take that from zero to 100, with your hands. But even before with your hands, with your vision. So they are definitely connected. There's an art of everything, you know. It's an art of barbering, there's an art of speaking, an art of listening, it's the art of everything. So they are definitely connected, 100%.
When it comes to being an artist and an art teacher, how do those two worlds connect with each other? And is there something that you maybe learned about yourself being an art teacher versus an artist?
Yeah, I started smiling just now. I was on a panel. No, I wasn't a panel. I think it was some kind of board. I can't remember, something I was participating in. But I was there, and when I got into we had a virtual meeting, and when I got into the meeting, I saw big wigs, all these people, and I was like, "Jeez, why did they invite me?" So I go from participant to student mode right then. I said, I'm gonna listen at these guys, and I'm gonna soak up everything, because when am I ever gonna get this chance again? Well, Leo Twiggs was in the room, and he greeted everyone, and he invited us to identify as artist teachers. That's why I started smiling when you said art and art teachers, but artist teachers. And the whole foundation of everything he was saying was, if you had to base it on something, you would base it on this statement: there is no educating or teaching without modeling a demonstration. So you're invited to be an artist, right, and share what you do. So when you say, as far as being an artist and an art teacher, there is a definite, 100% separation, because of what being an educator does to you. It's exhausting. It stretches you away from what you want to do, into a place where you're kind of doing what you got to do because of policies, because of different things, that you're going to deal with. But that invite, it kind of changed me, man, because I was like, listen, I got to be an artist and share what I do. So now, as an art teacher, I have, and I'm probably the last 7-8 years of teaching. I keep a corner in my class. I keep a wall as studio space, and I work daily. Daily. If it's one semester was pretty hectic, and this is the one I had the most progress because I pledged 7 minutes. 7 minutes was what I did. 7 minutes each class period on a piece of work, right there in front of the kids every single day. And that was modeling. And sometimes, they pay attention, sometimes they don't. But that's modeling, that that artist behavior. I had a student maybe 2 days ago, and new semester started after Christmas, so they kind of new to my class, and they're sitting there, and it's just like, "Oh, Mr. Johnson, you doing that?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm an artist teacher. And she's like, "Oh man." She turned to the girl next to her, like, "Finally, we got an art teacher that can draw." And that
Wow.
blew my mind because every art teacher has gone through the same, education even further than I've gone through. But somehow they forgot that they were artists, and just became art teachers. So there's a natural disconnect, but there's a super connect that can be, made between art teacher and artist. I would never view them again of being separate things. I think you just strive to be an artist and you teach, or share, what you do.
Listening to you say that, I started thinking about all the different art teachers I had over the years, and I've never seen any of them. I had a few that shared something that they
Right,
did, but
right,
the only time you would see them do something is when they were giving an example and it
uh-huh,
wasn't actually working on a piece. It was just
right,
like a sheet of paper or something, and this is how you are, let me show y'all real quick, but it was never someone actively working on a piece. I love that, man. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah. And for students to see you, I was talking to it was a young lady. I think we was in her class, and I was like, "Listen, work in front of your students all the time, and it's not about doing anything right. Artists tend to, and it's a good practice. You don't want to put out any junk because anything you put out represents you. So they want to be, on top of the game, but at the same time, it's so empowering for students to see you work, mess up, work through mistakes, problem solve. You know, get
Yeah.
some things right, get some things wrong. But artists, we kind of, kind of particular about what we put out there. But it's a thing you should work in front of them, I think.
I think it would have really made a difference because even just representation in general,
Right, right, right.
it makes a difference. Like to see a teacher or a professor
Hmm.
doing something that you want to do or something that you aspire to do, and not even just a teacher or professor, just anybody. As a
Hmm.
young person, seeing somebody do that and seeing somebody care enough to share it with you, that
Right,
means a lot. Even at our big grown age now, just for
right,
somebody to share something with you, it's inspiring, and it's like I can do that.
right. Yeah, it's that's big, man. When you get to talking and listening, you start, really thinking about this thing. But that is big, even now, like you said.
Do you remember your first commission, and what was that experience like?
Let's think.
I know it was a long time ago, but
Yeah, a long time. Think about that, man. Yes, I think my first commission was and it's probably a portrait. I think a portrait. Yeah, it was a portrait. I look back at it, probably not very good. Not knowing what I know now, but
yeah,
more than anything, I was honored that somebody wanted me, you know, out of all these other artists, all these great artists, wanted me to do that for them. Um, and I think, of course, I don't know, I wonder if I gave it to him or not, like actually gifted it to him, or I took the money. But I can remember that it was a portrait. I'm trying to go through my mind and think about what it was a portrait of, who it was a portrait of, but it was a portrait. But I was more honored to have that chance, because you kind of dream of doing things. I always um, dreamed of doing a mural, or dreamed of somebody asking me to do,
Yeah.
a portrait. But I don't. I thinking back, it was a picture of a little girl, like a baby picture of a little girl, and I can think on it right now. I know I went in and I made that little girl too hard in the face, and it was a pencil drawing, and it was, it wasn't that good, but they did like it. And I was, more than anything, that's the big thing. I can remember being honored to actually do that. Um, every artist has a voice, right? Um, as we grow, some artists, you know, uh, this inner groaning inside, that voice needs to be heard. The magnitude varies between each artist. Some need to be heard
Yeah.
in the house, some need to be heard, abroad. But anytime anybody gives you audience, ask you to do something, even this, I'm honored to do this. When you give an artist audience, then you give them life. So I was just, so glad and so honored to be able to do that. You know.
Yeah, man. It's something about just somebody thinking like, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
like what you're doing is dope. Could you do this for me?"
Yeah.
Like it just, I don't know how to explain it. Like it's just like the first time I ever, like somebody ever asked me to write something for them, like a
Hmm.
poem, I was just like, me? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then, like yourself, later on, I felt like it wasn't that good, but people cherish that type of stuff,
Right. Right.
and I think just anything that we do, we're harder on ourselves than we
Hmm.
should be. We need to be hard on ourselves because we can't get any
Hmm.
better. But sometimes I think we don't always do a good job at giving us ourselves just a little bit of grace.
Yeah. I heard it explained like this, and some words fly by and some resonate, but our issue is we suffer terribly from imposter syndrome. I mean, terribly, whether you try to or not, you suffer terribly from it. But if you stepped out of yourself and you just took your work, took your face off it, took, your identity from it, and you put it up against those works that we say, your work is your work is sometimes better.
Yeah.
But it's tough, and I don't know where. And we could sit and speculate, and we can have some solid evidence on why and from where things happen. But it is a thing that is in us, to where we don't feel like we are that. You know, it's something. I know the feeling. Even now, I know the feeling.
I think because just being appreciative and having like that humble nature to
Right.
where, you know, you have confidence, but then I think, well, for me, I can say it for times like that, it's just been trying not to go from confidence to cockiness, and
That's
arrogance.
what a good upbringing.
Yeah, hey, you right about
A
that.
good upbringing will do that, and it's a fine line. But this it's even hard to teach, because there comes a point where you need to be confident and vocal of
Yeah.
what you work for. Everybody say confident and vocal of what you do. You look at Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. Those guys were confident and vocal, but it's because of what they worked for. When everybody else was asleep, Kobe and Mike was in the gym.
Yeah.
If you sleeping and I'm working, and you out clubbing and I'm working, you know, I should be the one to open my mouth. Really,
Yeah, you're
I
right.
should be the one. But so for what you work for, there's a point where you should be not confident, not cocky, but confident and vocal of what you work for. You didn't, you know. So
That could be a whole conversation by itself.
it's tough, man. It's something that's tough to overcome,
Yeah.
especially country kids, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You really taught to, you know, work
Yeah.
and be humble, but.
And which leads into my next question. Like,
Hmm.
was there ever a point growing up where aspiring to be an artist might have seemed like scary for you to pursue? Because, like you said, like the upbringing is like, hey, you're supposed to go to school to do
Right.
this. And then
Right.
if you do, you're supposed to get a job here and do that. And then it's like art. Like, was there ever a point like when you had this, like when you said, like, this is it, this is what I want to
Yeah.
do, art? Did you ever receive any kickback or any feeling like, you know what, maybe I need to try to find a quote unquote safer
Hmm.
route of employment?
Hmm. Of course, I remember. I'm gonna say the college ages where people say it flat out: artists don't make no money. What you gonna do with that? And there was a lot of truth in what they were saying.
Yeah.
But I'm always bragging. Nobody had it better than me. Nobody was more blessed than me. Nobody, God didn't put men in nobody's path like He put in my path. I had a, I had a professor, mentor, Herman Keith, and he was an artist. And he would dull all that noise, and he would say, things like, "You're not trying to make money. You're not trying to chase money. Money gonna run you down." You know, he'll explain to us, and I think this way I got this theory from. If it didn't, we're gonna credit him for this
Yeah.
theory right here. But everyone in this world is blessed to do a thing. Um, it's easy for the talent based people who have, who are artistic, or they can sing. It's easy for them to pinpoint it. But everyone has a talent and a thing that they're graced to do, and that's the thing that they should do. Because if you're graced to do a thing and you're doing this thing, um, following that inner groaning, and you chasing that discipline of it, um, money will chase you down. Money's gonna chase you down, and you're gonna make the world go around, because you're actually, just say if we had doctors that did not care about people.
Come on. Yeah.
If you got doctors that don't care about people, it's gonna cause a trickle down that's terrible. But the ones who love people, people gonna chase them to pay them to care for them. You know, the same thing with anything else. So if the way it really should go, we heard, oh, you need to go to school and be a doctor or a lawyer. Well, there are people who are graced to be doctors and lawyers, but there are people who are graced to do a million other things. Things that we call big, things that we call small. But if we are doing what we're supposed to be doing, what we're graced to do, money gonna find all of us, and this world gonna turn, and every service will be served.
Yeah.
Not just everything will be good. So it was a time when I heard, what you're gonna do with that, and I looked and I was like, man, what am I gonna do with this? But thank God for the Herman Keiths of the world, who kept me in the road.
Yeah, man. Cause I know people who were art majors in
Hmm.
college, and about sophomore year,
Yeah,
once you get those classes out, those regular classes, and you get into your major stuff, they switch their major.
yeah,
And I was just like, why? And same thing you said, just feeling like, there's no money in that. You can't, but I'm just like, you can't listen to those people. And
yeah,
even one or two of those people that I know, years and years later, they still are participating in doing things, but it's not their career.
right.
But they've done drawings or paintings for somebody here and there, and
Hmm.
I'm just like, that thing is still in you strong.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
you said listen to those people. But it was so tough, and it is so tough, because a lot of those people are good people in your life, and they're speaking from what they know. A lot of those
Yeah.
people are parents. A lot of those people are influential people in your life, and they're speaking what they know, as far as money and things that are lucrative, but totally off key, totally off key. I watch kids now talk about career paths, and as bad as things are everywhere right now, that is one thing that's taking that turn, or people are realizing more than anything. They're not top two careers in the world we should be chasing. You know, uh,
Mm. Yeah.
they're realizing that, or they're being vocal about it. They've worked all their life on a job that may have made them money, but they've been miserable, unfulfilled. All of this time. And that's not living. Especially in the time where we got to work. So I'm seeing people actually seed into what their kids are interested in, and actually push them in that direction. So, you know, I think it'll turn where people are actually doing what they're graced to do, and we can see this thing turn in a different direction.
Yeah, because I've noticed people in our age group, like they give their children or they have conversations with younger people to let them express themselves and to do things. Like there's this guy, I was at a festival or something, and he was talking about how he always allows his son to pursue something that he's thinking about. He says his son is like in middle school age, but he's like he's letting him figure it out. Like if it's a sport he want to play or instrument or something he want to do, he's encouraging him to explore that because he said that growing up it was some things that he wanted to do, but he wasn't allowed to do it because it was just like, no, you need to go in school, you need to do this, you need to do that. And so he said he never wanted his son to feel like that. And he says that even at this age, it's something that was missing in him from that time period when he was younger and he was told no.
Yeah, I believe it because the longer that clock runs,
Yeah.
I'm 46 now, and I'd love to have all the money in the world, but a lot of things don't matter.
Yeah.
A lot of things don't matter, and if you look back over how long you're alive, how long you actually lived, we
Yeah.
we haven't lived a lot.
Yep.
So I'm glad to hear people our generation. We looking at the kids, the kids of people our generation, and have a whole lot of good to say about them. But I'm glad to hear people,
Yeah.
speaking
Yeah.
to the kids like that. That's top notch right there.
Yeah, because I was reading something one day and it was just basically saying that, like, with our generation, just how we were raised and how we were taught things, it also produced a lot of people who don't stand up for themselves. You don't say that because you're a child and, you weren't trying to be disrespectful, but you were
Right.
trying to get your point across or you were asking questions because you really didn't understand. It wasn't trying to talk out of turn, but yeah.
And I don't know if we were hearing the same thing because I'm thinking what I was. I'm not a big reader. And I forced myself a while to try to be a reader, but I'm just not a reader. I tried the audiobook thing for a while. I read short inserts, but I
Yeah.
was listening to a Malcolm Gladwell book. I can't remember which book it was. I don't know if it was Outliers, but he talked about the kids who were and he did it. It was kind of classes. He did it by upper, middle, and lower class. But the kids in the upper class, according to his book, were kids that um, were kind of entitled, kind of mouthy, but what they did was they asked questions and
Mm,
they stood up for themselves. Um, he had, in the case study, they took these different kids to a doctor's appointment, and the kids from the upper class parents coached them to ask the doctor questions and tell the doctor what was wrong with them. Right. The respectful kids from middle and lower classes who
yeah.
were taught to close your mouth when grown people talking. They went into the doctor's office and they closed them out when grown people were talking. Yes, sir. No, sir. Very mannerable, but none of them gave the doctor any feedback. And the doctor
Mm,
said, what else is going on with you? Um, and that translated into not standing up for yourself later in life because you didn't feel like you had a place in the conversation. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, man.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Thing. I know where I am in that in that whole mix. But yeah, that is a thing. That's a thing.
Yeah, it's good to see. Like I said, like you said, they say that the younger generation are doomed and stuff, but it's a lot of young people doing some very impactful things. They don't get the spotlight like the
No,
ones who are doing bad things, but it's a lot of
you
them
know,
doing good stuff,
a
man.
lot. Yeah, bad negative is so loud. You know,
Yes.
good is that thing that's always gonna be here. It transcends, But negative is just so loud. It's loud and it fades away. So it kind of blurs out the good. But those kids, like you say, that they're not getting they're just due for being and I'm gonna blame that on us again. I know this
Yeah.
podcast isn't about that, but
Yeah. Hey,
the
man.
the truth about it is the generation behind you is supposed to be that much better. Our ceiling is their floor.
I agree. Yep.
But we got to give them everything. We're supposed to leave this world exhausted, empty. So we got to give them everything and watch them fly. I think because of a lot of the bad that's around, we hold back on them and we don't pour into them and we don't just exhaust ourselves giving it all out until they don't feel like they're supposed to be better than us. In the end,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Your artwork could be described as a bridging gap between community activism, education, and fine art. Now, we talked about, you painting portraits and drawing portraits and doing commissions. But when it comes to your artwork, I've seen your artwork. Your artwork is very powerful. I love your range. It's so many different things that you've done. One of the things that I really liked is that beer can you designed. That design for, is it eight and all? Like,
Yeah. So.
where did you come up with the concept for that?
Before I answer that, now I'm letting you know I'm stealing what you said. You know, bridging community and that's stolen. I just
Hey,
stole it.
go ahead, have at it, man.
Man, that was good, man. Not just talking about me, but so that eight and all. I keep saying now, nobody has it better than me. Nobody's more blessed than me. One of my college classmates. I'm a believer of God puts men in your path. And when I keep
Yeah,
saying that, I know, I'm always saying that, but um, I think, God deals with people different. Whoever your
yeah,
God is, deals with people different. God knows not to speak to me, and I hear him like me and you speaking, because I'm out, right? He know that's not gonna work with me, right?
yeah,
But he puts men in my path to follow, to move me, to turn me, and doors always open up. My college classmate, Jamal Lemon. Big shout out to Jamal
yeah,
Lemon. Great
man.
guy. He is up in DC, and it's kind of funny story. He was him and one of his homeboys won a sweepstakes or some type of competition to where they travel the world, drink beer, and blog for a whole year. So they were going out and they were eating the food, meeting the people, tasting the beer, and they went all around the world. When he got back, he got a job in that same industry, and somebody reached out to him. He's from Charleston, but he was in the DC area. But someone reached out to him about doing and I think they made it an annual thing, but it was a edition, some type of edition
Yeah,
run of beer that paid some homage to the real the real
yeah,
runners and makers of the beer of Edwin Oast. I think that was the name of it. But that's the oldest and one of the oldest beer companies or breweries here, in South Carolina. So what he was charged to do was charged to make the beer that reflected red rice, Gullah Geechee culture, okra, so on and so forth. So he
yeah,
went through and got all the hints in that. And he called me because now there needed to be a design for the can. And me and him went to Claflin together. And so what we did, we start throwing ideas around, and I came up with the label to be a playing card of sorts, right? And instead of the numbers or the suit in the upper and lower corners, we did symbols from the Endincra cloth. I can't remember. I have to go to my notes to remember what the symbol was, but
yeah,
replace those things, with that. But then inside, where you would have a king or queen or one of the face cards, replace that with the likeness of a slave. All right. Um, And you know how just like the bicycle cars, they have the image upright and the image upside
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
So that slave, a lot of people, I've been down a rabbit hole of research when it came to slavery and different things. And what a lot of people don't know is that South Carolina was pretty much the Paris Island of
yeah.
um, overseers. So if you up north and you about to take on some slaves, you can send your guys down to South Carolina to be trained, right? And this is it was so innovative, the things that they came up with to do um, in the handling, the platooning, and even punishment of slaves. One of the things that we see, and it's very attractive. When I say it's attractive, it draws your eye in, it attracts you to it, are the slave collars that the slaves
Yes,
wore.
yes,
If you do a little research on those slave collars, um, the master could send you to town, let you walk to town by yourself unassisted if he put the right collar on you. There were collars made that there were certain measurements of that collar had these extensions that came up and away from the body, and they usually weighed 30 pounds and better, so you couldn't run too far anyway, um, because after a mile 30 pounds turned to 60 pounds,
yeah.
you know so on and so forth. But um, the most genius, and I hate to use that word, but the most genius of those collars had a measurement of each arm that stuck off from it. There was an arm coming out front, two on the sides, and one in the back. And though the reason it was so genius, it was the average width of a door frame, right? The average width from tree to tree in the woods.
Wow,
So you can send that slave walking to town, right? And
wow.
he could not
Yeah,
go in any door, right? And if he tried to run away in the woods, he wouldn't make it because bam, it would hit the trees. So it was impossible. And he couldn't turn because it was one left, right, front and back. So he couldn't turn either way. So I decided to use that collar. And so instead of having a king or a queen on that card, we had a dressed slave, and he was dressed, as if he was going on some type of errand, or either accompanying, some of his masters, and he had that collar on, and that was to commemorate those eight in all, because there were eight slaves that came up with the recipe, brewed the beer, ran the brewery,
yeah.
and of course never got any anything or any recognition for it. So that's where that came from. And that was one of the dopest things I've ever been a part of. I think that's probably one of the dopest things I've been a part of. It's real cool. I
See,
got one of those beers in my refrigerator right now.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
I
in it.
yeah, I had to get it one of them cans. I got a can in the cabinet.
Yeah,
Because I saw that, and I'm glad I'm having this conversation with you because I never knew Jamal went to Claflin. I can't
yeah,
remember how I came across him. It might have been Clubhouse or something,
yeah.
but
He started at Claf, and then he went on.
y-
I think sophomore, junior year, went on to I think CSU playing football.
okay,
Yep, he
okay.
started right there at Claflin.
Yeah, yeah, man. And I was reading his series. He did a blog series about the history of breweries in Charleston.
Oh man,
And I
it's good
thought that
stuff.
was pretty dope too. And
Oh,
then when that can came out and I saw you were the artist behind it, I was just like, wow. I learned something today. I never knew
right.
about that particular collar and the size of it. And just to hear, your words as far as the research you did as before you did it, I find that very important and something whenever I talk to artists. Whenever you have a piece of work to do, they always dive into research. That is so important. And I like to hear that because it shows your passion in your work. It's like you're not just doing something just to do it. You want to make sure that the artwork speaks.
Mm. And I wish I was smart enough to come up with this. And this came from another one of my professors, Terry Hunter. He will explain to you what artwork is, and the way he explains it is just say if you got this painting behind me, that's just evidence that artwork happened. The actual artwork is the research, the research.
Wow.
So, oh man,
Yeah.
I was like, wow. But he said that's tangible evidence. this is tangible evidence of artwork happening. So the actual work is the idea coming to you, and then the research that you go into to find the figures and the icons, and then actually arranging those icons,
Yeah. Wow.
and then rendering them. But that the research is a thing that I came to know research when I was in college, and I try to get my kids now to go down that rabbit hole of research. You fill your brain with not some knowledge you think is useless knowledge, but it'll be there, and then you're gonna recall it and use it when needed. But that research and the different things, those are the things that's felt in a piece of work. You know, there's a lot of works out there that are rendered in a time where people didn't study. When I say rendered, they drew them or paint them in a time where people didn't have the knowledge of figures and anatomy that we have now. So they
Yeah.
don't look as good as what we have now. But what we have now is not half as impactful as what they had. But that's because of the part of that you ain't seeing, you feeling it. And all of that comes from all of the research and all of the, I mean, even back then when someone went outside and grabbed different color flowers and made their paint,
Yes.
that work will have so much more than a work that I do right now because of that stuff. We can't see it, but those things, you'll feel them. I'm a believer in that human energy that's put into things. It brings a whole nother feel, man. Things you can't duplicate that.
I agree, man. Because I love to go in art galleries and just sit with the
Yeah,
artwork.
yeah,
And there's some you look at and you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. But there's some that you look at and it's just like, man, you can feel it. Like,
yes,
you know
yes,
what this artist was
yes,
trying to capture. You
yeah,
know the time period, what was going on. I went to a art exhibit. It was a couple
mm-hmm,
years ago, and it was featuring artwork from Black Americans at the art museum in Columbia, and it was stuff that I had seen before, like
mm-hmm,
maybe in a magazine or TV,
mm-hmm,
but to be there with it, right? Especially if they're using layers, because you could see a picture or whatever and it'd be like, okay, that's pretty cool. But then some of these things have like layers and they come out at you and then you read the bio, just being there, like, like there was some passion put
yeah,
behind this. This person might have been hurting, they might have been happy.
mm-hmm,
Could be times like we having right now where they just had to get it out.
mm-hmm. Yeah. That's substance, man. It's a thing, man. When you get to the point where you and I love things that I don't understand. I got an understanding of what I've even read little articles on artists who focus on the feel of the work and would do certain things to their materials. Like there was one artist that did his saliva in his paint. So every
Yeah.
every paint has a binder, a pigment, and a solvent. So if we look at binder, we look at pigment as maybe a colored powder, right? Um, and we would say binder would be something like gel, just say egg white or whatever, right? But then the solvent would be like water that thins it
Yeah.
out. Right? But he would use his saliva as the solvent, to thin the paint out, and saying that this is a part of him. There's been painters that would use their blood in paint,
Yeah. I read
yourself.
about
You heard
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you also got painters that write on a canvas. They'll write a message to themselves or a message to a loved one, then prime the canvas and then paint on it because they know it's gonna. Nobody ever see the message, but it's gonna push a feeling from their artwork. So it's some dope individuals out there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you one of them.
I want to be. I'm pushing to be that.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
goal, man. That's a goal.
Before I let you get out of here, I like to ask my guests this: like, what's one thing about you that maybe a lot of people don't know that you wish more people knew?
Um, Now, really, 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 this for real. I've gotten so small as I grow older, right? Um, just from the strength of me understanding that that ain't about me,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Um, but if we talk about my work, right? Because this is what I do. This is why I'm here. If you had to say my ministry is the arts, every connection I make is through the arts, right? Well, in my work, you will always see, all right, either literal, imposed, or superimposed, the square, the circle, and the triangle. All right. You're gonna see that in every piece of my work. All right. When I say
Yeah.
superimposed, you may have to look at, a color may be here, here, and here and situated in a certain way. Um, or you may have to do some research on what a circle is, what a square is, what a triangle is. But you'll see that in every piece of my work. Um, I like people to know that because that's my thanks to God for the gift.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there's plenty of people in this world, plenty much better people in this world, much more deserving people in this world that have this gift. He chose me to give it to me. So because He chose me to give me the gift in every piece of my work, I give those three things back to Him, and here's why. All right, the mind behind that is this: those three symbols are we're gonna say Israeli-ish custom. All right, and the reason you say ish is because customs and traditions are passed down by word of mouth. It's never written, so no one
Yeah.
can conquer my place and find my customs, the things that are real. So we say ish because we don't know how diluted or how messed up it got down
Yeah.
over
Right.
time.
Right.
But yeah, but in the country we were always taught, don't you speak God's name in vain. Well, those people were so serious about not using God's name in vain until they wouldn't even write the name. So in any of their writings, when they came across, if you came across a square, a circle, or a triangle, that was in replacement of the name God. So they'll use those symbols. They had numbers that were considered godly numbers. Anytime, and we use 15 for example, right? But anytime you got to 15, if it was some arithmetic and something equaled 15, they would write 13. Excuse me, they'll write 14, they'll write 16, or they would use the square, the circle, and the triangle. The triangle because all these significant threes from nature
Yeah.
to all significant threes. The square because it's right. You break it apart, you got two right angles, and the circle because it's infinite. So you're gonna see that in all of my drawings, all of my paintings. It's to the point now, and that's one thing I'm proud of myself as. It's to the point I would do a piece of work, and maybe during the work, I don't even think about it fitting, right? I don't care about how it plays with the balance of my pieces. I don't care if it works; it's going in there. So if that's one interesting thing or one thing about me, I want people to know. When you look at my work, you're gonna see a circle, you're gonna see a square, you're gonna see a triangle, and that's my thanks for the gift.
Man, I'm glad I asked you this question because I noticed it,
Yeah,
but until you said it, it's like it's really jumping out at me now. I'm like, you know what? Yeah.
yeah. And listen now, as a writer, right? You got to find a way to sign everything you touch. Some people, and it could be coincidence, it could not, but they even go in the Bible and where these great poets and writers were charged to write the Bible, they signed it, even though it was a collaboration. They found ways, clever, genius ways, to sign
Yeah.
the Bible. So I kind of borrowed that and included all that in my work. So you
Ah,
should borrow that theme too. Find a way.
hey, I
It's a
am.
way. Yeah,
I
it's a
love
way.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Let the people know how they can contact you, any projects you're working on, any information you want to share.
Well, shoot, as an artist, I'm always working. I've charged myself to work, 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 work. So, I mean, right now I have no I have no projects coming up right now. I do have some work in a Park Circle show coming up from the 2nd to the 26th of February
Okay.
in Park Circle. And also some work in a Constellation show coming up in Columbia. And I don't want to misquote the name of the studios that it's in, but that'll be coming up. Also, going all the way through Black History Month. My website is DamionJTheArtist.art. And you can catch me on Instagram. Straight arts page. You don't have to worry about seeing any of my life, but the part that counts,
Right.
the art. So that's also Damion J, the artist.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank everybody. I have the information in the show description. So check it out. Click on the website. Do all the things. I want to thank you again for taking the time out to just sharing some of your story. I really, really appreciate this, man. This conversation has
I
helped
appreciate.
me.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. You know.
Once again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. And as always, remember, keep pushing forward. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Brown Sugar Cafe podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Terrence P. Elmore, and this is the place where poetry meets conversation. Hit that follow button and turn on your notifications so you won't miss an episode. Check out my blog, thebrownsugarcafe.blog. Also connect with me on Instagram at thebrownsugarcafe. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, remember, keep pushing forward.